Hi, so today I thought I'd make another Bash tutorial, and I thought we'd talk about quoting because it's a very important aspect of scripting in Bash, and I think it's really important to understand how quoting in Bash works and what the difference is between the single quotes and the double quotes, and what the meaning of those different types of quotes is in Bash. And that's why I thought I would make this tutorial and talk about those things, because understanding these aspects of bash scripting really helped me clarify a lot of things that I didn't understand when I was just starting out. And then once I kind of understood these things, uh, scripting in bash became much more easy and straightforward, and a lot of mistakes that I was making were pretty much eliminated. So scripting or quoting is a very important uh, topic when it comes to bash scripting. So let's go ahead and take a look. So I have Bash's manual over here, and I'll leave a link to this in the description below. And they have this section here that is called quoting. And what we're going to be talking about in this video is particularly the single quotes and the double quotes subsections. Um, because I really wanted to pretty much dedicate this video to thoroughly explaining the difference between those two kinds of quotes. So let's go ahead and start with the single quotes, and it's like the explanation is very short. Even in the Bash manual, it says that enclosing characters in single quotes preserves the literal value of each character within the quotes. So um, that basically means that um, if I want Bash to print or like to maybe to store a string like in a variable or pass it to a command or whatever, uh, and I want to make sure that all of the characters in that string are treated as literal characters and not as special characters uh, uh, in Bash. Like for example, a $sign is a special character because it introduces a name of a variable. So like if I put the $sign in single quotes and like maybe I say $var, then that will be the contents of the string. But if I had a variable called var, for example, equals 1, and I put it not in single quotes but in double quotes, that would expand the value of that variable, and that would become the content of the string. So the real kind of point, the most important point about the single quotes is that they do not allow for any. There's no room for like any mistakes when it comes to like forgetting to escape the $sign if you use like double quotes, for example. So like I could still use double quotes and I could escape the $sign and would produce the same result as this this example where I just use the single quotes. But this is like kind of thing that is very easy to forget in scripts. And so if the only thing that you want to do with a piece of code is to just save its value, for example, or pass its value to a command, just the best way to go, I think, is just to use single quotes always, without any exceptions. That way you will never make a mistake. So like whatever I put in this string, I don't have to think about it. It's always going to be literally interpreted. But I just said like I don't have to think about it. Actually, you do have to think about one thing, but only one thing, and that's the second point that they highlight here in this explanation, which is it says that a single quote may not occur between single quotes, even when preceded with a backslash. So basically what it means is that you cannot have a single quote inside single quotes. They just work like that. They work as kind of del- they tell bash that this is the beginning and this is the end of a string, but there is no like way to put a single quote inside of them, because they even like a backslash, which is an escape character, which I use, for example, over here to escape the dollar sign and the double quotes. But with single quotes, you can't use a backslash because that just becomes a literal backslash. So if I were to put this there, this wouldn't actually work, because bash still thinks that I haven't like basically what is the way bash is interpreting this code is it thinks that like this is the first string, and then I'm starting to concatenate another string, then I pressed enter and it still thinks that I want to put something in there. But if that's not your intention, then it's like that's not gonna work. So what do you do if you have a single quote in your string? So basically what you do in that case is, for example, if I wanted to have a string that contained let's say like 7 o'clock or something, I would have to have two parts basically, before the quote and then after the quote, and between them I would have to put an escape single quote and put them all together without anything separating them. So it has to be a single string, and then it comes out as 7 o'clock like we wanted to. So I mean, you know, when you I kind of understand why people sometimes use double quotes in these situations, because, well, it's just like hard to read, right? Why don't I just go like this? And this will work like in this particular case. But the problem is that like if you get into a habit of using single quotes or double quotes in like just kind of generally, because, well, like you could like in double quotes, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but maybe just to skip ahead just slightly, I could have even a double quote within double quotes. I could escape it, because like escaping works within double quotes, but not within single quotes. And so like you would say, well, single quotes are kind of annoying, because like if you have a single quote there, then you have this mess and it's hard to read. Well, actually, I would say that it becomes very easy to read once you get used to seeing this particular pattern. Then you just know that like, okay, this is just this part, you don't have to think about it, but what you kind of understand in your mind is that like, well, this is just the end of the previous part, this is the escaped quote that is there, and then this is the beginning of the next part. And so like this just means that there's a single quote there, and like there's no problem there. Another good thing about single quotes and the fact that this is the only sort of like you could say exception to the general rule that and like it's really the only exception, because like you can see that this explanation just ends here. It's just as simple as that. So the advantage to this is that you can always print a value into a terminal output when you have a script, for example, such that it can be copied out of the terminal and then pasted back and then run again. Because maybe you have some error message or something, and maybe there is a value that that message wants to give to the user. And then if you sort of like, I don't know, let me clear the screen. Let's make something up. For example, maybe you had some error message. I'll use printf here, just kind of serve as a point of principle. I never use echo in my scripts because it has issues, and I'm gonna actually, I just thought that I would probably, I'll probably make a video at some point about printf and echo, or like why printf is a better command to use instead of echo. But this is not what this video is about, so this is something for another time. But basically, I'm just gonna make up some error message. Let's say just like invalid input or something. Then I have a colon, and then you have your variable there that will contain your value, and then maybe you have like another part that just like ends the message somehow. And so like this is the output that it gets. So right now my var is set to 1. Let's set that var to 7 o'clock. And so right now it's like invalid input 7 o'clock, and like maybe this is a kind of value that the user sometimes might want to copy from the terminal and then paste it back and then do something with it. Or another issue is that like how do you like make it unambiguous that this is a value and like this dot is like is not a value, like things like that. So like it would be nice to kind of make it clear somehow. So like you might think, well, okay, I'll just enclose it into quotes, put just single quotes around it like this. But then like if you copied this and pasted this in, you probably now know what would happen, like it wouldn't work. Even though like for all the values that don't have any single quotes in them, it would work. So for these cases, since a single quote is a relatively rare character, and you won't really that often have this kind of, at the first glance, what appears at first glance is a complicated string appearing in your terminal output, and like someone who uses the terminal will probably understand it anyways. So, but the point is, it won't clutter the output, and it will also produce a copy pastable string. So it might be better to just like print this. So now, how do you make sure that it's always printed in this format, that like all the single quotes are treated like this, so that like the previous part is ended, and then a single quote is inserted within its escaped form, and then the part of the message that follows the single quote is started as a new segment of that string. So the way to do it is basically to use Bash's what is it called, like parameter expansion, I think. Oh, here. So it's this thing. It's under parameter expansion, so that's one of the expansions that Bash supports. Basically, it kind of works in a pretty intuitive way. Like generally speaking, you have like two forward slash delimiters there, and you can replace characters. So for example, if I want to replace an O within that string, like with, let's say, just as an example, with an underscore, I can do that, and now the first O is replaced with an underscore. Now, if I wanted to replace all the O's, I could add another forward slash. That's how this works, basically. If you want it to be like, kind of like, if you know regex, regular expressions, then it would be kind of like the global flag in regular expressions. So in this case, like all the matches to this pattern will get replaced. So we can use this to solve our little problem here, and we can replace all the occurrences of a single quote. You have to escape it here. So we'll replace all occurrences of a single quote with this thing. And we will need to, again, do a little bit complicated looking escaping, but the good thing about it is that it always will produce the correct result in our terminal output. So we need to replace this single quote with this, a single quote, a backslash, another single quote, and then yet another single quote. So backslash single quote for the first single quote, then backslash for the backslash, and then again backslash single quote, backslash single quote. And that will always produce a string in the terminal output that you can always copy and paste, and it will work no matter what it is. it will just be always correctly quoted. So that's something that I personally use um, very often in my scripts, so that like the output is unambiguous, and I don't have to like worry about like, well, should I like insert like a Unicode, like a single quote or double quote that is not this like basically, should I use some alternative character to distinguish it from like the single quote? It's just like it becomes like a mess, and it's not consistent. Basically, this is kind of the way that I find it as compatible with the shell, and so since we're working in the shell, it kind of makes sense to produce this kind of output. So this I think this is a good solution, and that's what I do in my scripts personally. So yeah, these are kind of the few important points about single quotes that I want to share here. Now let's talk a bit more about the double quotes. Let's get back to quoting. So now the double quotes. I'm not gonna go through this entire paragraph here, but I wanted to just kind of touch on the most important bits, and kind of like this first sentence, I guess. Enclosing characters and double quotes preserves the literal value of all characters within the quotes, with the exception of the $, the backslash, or not the backslash, the backtick, and the backslash. And when history expansion is enabled, the exclamation mark. So now let's take a look at some examples of these special characters in action, and I'm gonna kind of explain some things that I think can be pretty dangerous if you forget to escape them on some occasion. Maybe you're tired or like something like that, and you just kind of something slips your mind and you accidentally forget to escape them. There can be like pretty bad consequences, I think, to that. I'm gonna show you what I mean. So here's our previous example. Now I could basically rewrite this example and make it all be all double quotes without using like concatenating like this part, then putting a single quote, and then having the double quoted part, and then another single quote, and then another string and single quotes. So what I could do instead, I could do this, and this would be the same as what I have above. And like you might think, well, this looks a lot cleaner, so why not just do this? You could like include single quotes there, no problem. And yeah, you have to escape some special characters, but that's not so hard to remember. And like on the one hand, yeah, like it is not that hard to remember. Those characters are comparatively rare, but like actually, like if you think of like the normal, language that we use on the day-to-day basis, they are pretty rare. But like in messages that appear in the terminal, they are fairly common. And like you might want to have a message saying something like let's just make something up. For example, okay, let's just go like run rm star to remove all the files. So let's say you have a message like this in your script, run some command to do something, and you want to highlight the command so that it's clear that where it begins and where it ends, and you might use backticks for that, sort of like markdown style. As a little side note, a lot of the time I see that people do this, and basically I found this article on Wikipedia that explains kind of why this convention exists. It's pretty interesting to know about. It basically has to do with the fact, or like basically has to do with how on older systems, the backtick would look like this, and then the single quote would look like this. Basically, using them as the opening and the closing character would be a good kind of approximation for the kind of single quotes that you might see like in books and stuff where the opening and the closing characters are different. But basically, let's just take a look at the example where we have two backticks there, and I'll show you why this can be dangerous. So basically, like if I use single quotes, there's no problem. Like it's gonna always be literal characters within the single quotes, like we talked about before. So I don't need to remember to escape them or anything like that. Basically, yeah, like, and it's all good. You just know, just because you're using single quotes, it's gonna be literal text. So let's say you have some files in your folder, which you probably do because you're probably running that script in, like maybe it's your project folder, or maybe it's your home folder, or like whatever. Let's create some files. I don't think I have anything there. No. So let's see. Touch. Let's create like 1 to 5 dash tests. So now I have some files there. So now let's enclose this in double quotes and see what happens. So now, basically, if I am careful and I do not forget to escape these backticks with backslashes, then the result is going to be, the output is going to be the same as in our single quoted example. But then maybe I'm tired, or like for whatever reason I forget to escape them. It just slips my mind for whatever reason, and then I press enter here. It's like, run, and then there's nothing to remove the file. Where's my rm star? And then like, oh my gosh, look at, there's no files anymore. And that's because that command has run. Because like this backticks syntax is the same in bash as this, which is command substitution, and like the backticks is just the POSIX shell syntax, and bash has an alternative syntax which looks like this. So like, just to kind of show it more explicitly that the command runs, I can do rmv. Well, right now it can't remove anything, but let's make those files again, and there, like, you see, like it started to print the message, then I have all the output from rm, it removed stuff, and then to remove all the files. So like in the backticks, it's exactly identical. So let me create those files again, and you can see that these two commands work exactly the same. So you probably won't miss this. I mean, you wouldn't have a message like this, obviously, because this kind of doesn't make sense. But I don't know, maybe you had some bash code in your message and you wanted to do, like, you could. But it's probably more dangerous with the backticks. Like, I think overall, it's just much more straightforward to always use single quotes for text and double quotes for variables and command substitutions, like I find. Like when it comes to your code, I remember reading a post once on Stack Exchange or something, and unfortunately I can't find that page anymore, but basically someone pointed out that that single and double quotes in bash have different semantic meaning, and I think that's absolutely right, because kind of once you look at how they're designed, like what we just looked at in bash reference manual of these sections, it's very clear that they have different purposes, and thus their meaning is distinct. So like it's just that single quotes are made specifically for literal text, and double quotes are made for like variables and command substitutions, etc. Things that need to be in like arrays, things that need to be passed as arguments to a command and need to be quoted, because when they're not quoted, then things work differently. So and so yeah, like when you write your code accordingly, when you basically, if you have literal text, then you use single quotes, and like when you look at it, it's like single quotes, it's literal text, like then it's immediately clear. And when you have double quotes, you know, like, oh, like it's a variable and it's in double quotes, like I understand, like it's immediately clear what everything is about. And like it's no big deal that they're concatenated like this. That's also kind of just part of how bash works, and I think it looks absolutely fine. So that's why this is my preferred method of writing it. I think it makes the code much more clear, and it also helps you avoid some mistakes that you could have otherwise that otherwise wouldn't happen if you used a different type of quote. So yeah, this is basically it. This is what I wanted to share in this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and valuable, and that it helps you to that it helped you understand single and double quotes in Bash better. And yeah, this is basically it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.